volume and surface area of a cylinder. So we know what volume is. It's the space inside a 3D object, and our surface area is the area of the face of the object. So if we're talking about a cylinder, we have our volume being pi r squared h. Pi r squared is the area of a circle. Okay, so a circle is obviously part of a cylinder, and then h is the height of that cylinder. So our perpendicular height, r is the radius, v is our volume. Then we have the surface area. Now this formula isn't as nice, okay? It is on our formula sheet, but it's not labelled. So you do need to know what it looks like to know what you're looking for if you do forget the order things go, where the squares go, and so on. So if we think of the surface area of a cylinder, you have the top and the bottom, which make two circles. So this is where we get our 2 pi r squared. We then have plus 2 pi r h. So if we think the circumference of a circle, the perimeter, is found using 2 pi r. So we have 2 pi r, and if we think, if that was rolled out, it's almost like a rectangle. Okay, so it's base times height. So the base is 2 pi r, and then the height is the same. So that's where we get our 2 pi r h. So again, r is the radius, and h is our perpendicular height. So for our questions here, for our examples, we have a can of vegetables is measured to be 9 centimetres high and 7 centimetres in diameter. So if we draw ourselves a quick little diagram, just so we can see what we're looking at. So we have 7 centimetres in diameter, and our height is 9 centimetres. So what we then need to do is firstly find our volume. So our volume is pi r squared h. Our radius, if our diameter is 7, so our diameter is 7, our radius is half of that, so we get 3.5. So pi times 3.5 squared, and we times it by our height, which is 9. Now this gives us 346.3605, so on, and that's in centimetres cubed. Now, what it actually says is to the nearest milliliter. So this is wanting me to convert it to capacity. So we need to remember from one of our previous lessons that 1 centimetre cubed is the same as 1 milliliter. So if this is in centimetres cubed, this means there are 346 millilitres in that can, and that's how much it can hold capacity-wise. So what we then need to do, using the same can, we need to calculate the surface area. So the surface area, 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. So our two circles and then that curved rectangle, so to speak. So we use our same information, 2 times pi times our radius of 3.5 squared plus 2 times pi times our radius times by our height. We put all of that into our calculator, we get 274,889. And if we round, we get 275 centimetres squared. Now, a little extension that they could ask here is calculate the area of a label with a 1.5 centimetre overlap. So if you think of a can of vegetables, can of beans, there is always that little bit of an overlap so that the paper can actually stick onto each other as opposed to being stuck on the can. So if you think of a diagram, so it's going to be a rectangle, okay, the label that's on there. And then you've got here, so this is 1.5 centimetre of our overlap. The height is still the same, and this part here that we already had was our 2 pi r. So we're simply adding these two measurements together and multiplying them by the height. So the area is 2 pi r plus 1.5 times by our height. Now we're going to put in our information. So 2 times pi times our radius, which was 3.5, times by our height, which is 9. None of these measurements have actually changed. We're still using the same thing. Typing that in, we get 211,420. And then if we simplify that, we get 211 centimetres squared.